Hello and welcome back, fellow street users. We were supposed to be exploring Marple this week, but unfortunately the day I penciled that ride in was a bit too stormy to go out. Sorry about that. Instead, this week I thought I'd share with you a top secret feature that's on a lot of new crossings in Greater Manchester that they don't want you to know about. So, shh. I can't offer you any top secrets about crossings like this one. They're programmed to operate at set intervals, and I think we all know the beg buttons on these do absolutely nothing for timings. Press them as much as you want and they won't change any sooner. You'll get a beep when it's time to cross, which is obviously useful for some people. However, there has been some progress on these crossings. Until recently, this particular one was programmed to trap people on the centre island and worked in stages. So first you'd be granted permission to cross to the centre, where you'd then wait again on your little island until being allowed to fully cross. Now, thanks to pressure from street users, the timings have been reprogrammed to allow a more reasonable continuous crossing. I've no secret to reveal about these either, the good old uncontrolled crossing, and this primarily is going to be the one you'll think of, the classic black and white zebra crossing with the flashing beacons. Let's just take a second to admire the response time of this ambulance. As a sophisticated, technologically driven society, we've got ourselves some brand new crossings in Greater Manchester, and a lot of them have a top secret feature I'm going to have to share, because it seems for some reason that the B network and your local authorities don't want you to know about it. Basically, these crossings are divided into two strips to allow pedestrians and cyclists to cross without coming into conflict. One pathway for pedestrians and another for wheelers. Very modern and very nice. And these are the ones that are likely to have the top secret feature. The secret feature I'm about to reveal is mostly found on the new signalised parallel crossings, sometimes referred to as sparrow crossings. I'll link the B Network's promotional video about them in the description. If you've had one of these installed near where you live, check the ground on the approach for a patch like this, because this is where you unlock the secret feature. You can ride over these things known as piezo sensors, and the crossing will activate in time for your arrival, without the need for any button use. Or it should do, but if it doesn't, you need to listen to this next part. What's the rationale for keeping this under wraps? Surely any investment in modern infrastructure like this is something to shout about. Even for the official body responsible for integrated transport across Greater Manchester, the concept of ground sensors for crossings is so radical that at first they didn't know what to do with them once they were in the ground. For example, the crossings are also fitted with additional sensors on top of the lights that disable the crossing feature in the presence of traffic. Yeah, I'll give you a second to digest that. You did hear that right. The crossings are fitted with more sensors that in the presence of traffic are there to disenable the buttons and the ground sensors that usually operate the crossing. Now I don't know about you, but in the presence of traffic is exactly when I want the crossings to be activated. It's a bit like buying a fancy new computer and then paying somebody to downgrade it so it's just as shit as your old one. About 4 years ago, when we were getting 3 of these modern crossings installed locally, I was sure it was a step in the right direction for street users. But when they were installed, they didn't live up to expectations. Something was off. I used them multiple times a day and quickly picked up that because of the sensors on top of the lights, in the presence of traffic, the ground sensors was completely useless, and even the beg button was delayed for half a minute. Meaning that a motorist a quarter of a mile away was getting priority over people at the crossing. That's from approximately here to here. This situation is clearly not acceptable to any sensible street user, so I contacted TfGM and told them the crossings aren't working properly. At first, the notion of not prioritising motorists from half a kilometre away was so foreign to anybody I managed to speak to at TfGM that you could literally hear their brains overheating. And they came up with all kinds of baloney, including one guy who said motorists need time to know when to stop, until he explained they don't need a quarter of a mile, mate. And anyway, that's what the amber lights are for. At which point I think he short-circuited and had to be sent back to the factory for repairs. Anyway, street users don't eat baloney, so after about 6 months of persevering with TfGM, the crossings were eventually reprogrammed to work properly. The drawn-out 6-month period was partially because the concept of changing priority was so alien to them, and partially because the know-how of actually reprogramming the crossing wasn't available amongst the ranks. But press the button now and the crossings activate immediately. Ride over the sensor, the crossing activates instantly, as it should be. No delay, even in the presence of traffic. So, if you've had one of these installed where you live in Greater Manchester and it's not functioning correctly, be sure to let TfGM know. They do appear to be now getting the hang of things with these. So if you're stood waiting at the side of the road for a car a quarter of a mile away, or the ground sensors aren't working, be sure to report it as a incorrect priority issue, a language they should understand. After all, if you don't let them know, you're paying for a service you're not receiving. I'll leave the link in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next week.
¡Dale, mariachi!